Hello, this is Steve Sessions, CEO of the Session Group. Again, we're at World Headquarters. It's good to be here. We've got Wade Anderson, who is a Vice President with Gobble Hayes Partners, who are environmental consultants. And as a third video, we're going to talk about asbestos. And I've dealt with a lot of asbestos in a lot of buildings. This is a big issue. It has been a big issue, and I still think it is a big issue. So, what do building owners need to be aware of? Talk to us about asbestos.
Well, Steve, I think the thing for most building owners to know is that asbestos is a natural occurring mineral, was added to building products as early as the 1930s and 40s, but really got traction in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when some of the manufacturers found out that they could extend the life of their building products by adding asbestos. It's a good binder, it's a good insulator, certainly chemical resistant, fireproofing, that sort of thing. And in fact, in the 70s, a lot of government buildings mandated that you used asbestos-containing materials. It was a premium building material at that time. You paid more money if you had asbestos in your building material, and because it did last longer. Then, of course, in the 70s, right about that time, EPA and OSHA were being born, and asbestos is one of the first things that they decided to pick on because it was one of the leading health issues at the time, and needed to start looking at banning and phasing out the use of asbestos. So of course, after the 1970s, the price of the building materials went down, and we started seeing it used a lot more in commercial buildings and even in residential.
It's used more?
It used more. In fact, a lot of people think that you can't buy asbestos in building materials anymore, and that's simply not true. You can still buy sheet vinyl products, flooring, floor tiles, ceiling tiles, different miscellaneous category type materials are still available on the market and are bought and sold every day.
So, are you telling me that most buildings have some asbestos, or that's interesting.
It's a good chance, yes. In fact, the EPA and OSHA have kind of agreed that the 1987, 1988 date of new construction, it's going to be less likely that asbestos was used after the 1987, 1988, but it's not a given. Buildings prior to that age have to be inspected, and then they go to say that buildings after that age should be inspected prior to any renovation or demolition. So,
what does a building owner need to know to protect their tenants and themselves as it relates to asbestos?
Well, I think that, first of all, OSHA has laws on the books, and have had since the middle 90s, that not only building owners but building managers are required to notify their tenants if they have asbestos in the building. And building owners and managers are also required to tell contractors that are working in their buildings if they have asbestos. So again, it's up to them.
Well, we don't know if we got asbestos in these buildings.
Correct. And
so what do we do?
Well, again, that's where we come in, and building inspections need to be done. We collect small samples of the building materials and have them analyzed at an independent laboratory, and then we'll determine whether or not it's a regulated asbestos-containing material or not.
And so if it is?
If it is, again, asbestos in a building doesn't mean it's dangerous. There is no reason to take asbestos out of a building if it's in good condition and is not being disturbed or going to be disturbed. So management plans, asbestos management plans are a great tool for building owners to manage their asbestos materials in place, keep them in good condition, but the real basic component of asbestos management is education of your staff, notifying all the tenants if there is asbestos in your building, and then educating your maintenance staff so that they deal with it appropriately and don't cause a spill. Once a spill occurs, and a spill is where asbestos has been disturbed and allowed to either migrate from the area that it was damaged, or certainly be walked around with dust just in foot traffic and whatnot, and that can certainly cost a lot of money to clean up.
Well, that's great. So, last question. I've heard of phase 1 and phase 2 reports. So can you just briefly, so owners understand what those are?
Yeah. In the building real estate industry, you hear of phase 1, environmental assessments, and then phase 2. Phase 1 is simply going through, is kind of a introductory inspection of a building, looking for things like signs of chemical spills, and really looking at where is that building in relationship to gas stations, within a mile, and leaking tanks and things like that. Most phase 1s don't even look at asbestos. The ASTM standards really haven't kept up on that, where asbestos is usually talked about in kind of peripheral, saying it's a new enough building, or it may contain asbestos, however we don't look for it. That's a typical phase 1. And then phase 2 is mostly related to the underground issues, the USTs, the chemicals in the ground, and so to speak. So asbestos inspections are really kind of outside of that realm, and really aren't picked up on phase 1s and 2s.
Perfect, great.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Great information, very informative. It's just really been helpful. So thank you so much for your time today. Again, Steve Sessions, Wade Anderson, we're glad to have presented this series of videos. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll be most responsive. Have a great day.